Welcome to Your 1%, the chat show on voicesandviews.com. Happiness is a gift, not a commodity. There is joy to be found in small things in life that we take for granted, like a smile, a pat on the back, a hug, which adds to the sweetness of our everyday life. I am quoting from the book The Happiness Quotient by Dr. Rekha Shetty, who is an author of 5 books. She's a poet and has written and directed musicals for the theatre. Also known as Corporate Doctor, Dr. Rekha Shetty uses creativity and innovation as the magic tools for the development of an individual. Team B&B has stepped out of Mumbai and is in Chennai to meet Dr. Rekha Shetty, who is our guest on this episode. Welcome to Your 1%, Rekha. It's so good to be here. I cannot put my finger on it, but there is some special element in your book which is not found in other management books. So what is the special element that you have stirred into it?
It's very kind of you to say so. I think perhaps you picked up the very Indian elements which take us right back to our roots. Ideas that we learnt at our grandmother's knee. So perhaps you felt it was very homely. I don't know what it was.
Yeah. No, but there is something special. It is very different from other management books. I felt it was touching a person right at the core of the heart, and also putting it in very simple terms that anybody can understand that. That was...
Most of the work I've done, I wanted to be used. Like if you consider my last book, Innovate 90 Days to Transform Your Business. Yeah. It is a day-by-day account. Exactly what you should do every day for 90 days to bring in the culture of innovation into your company. Yeah. I like to think of this book also as a workbook. Like you pick up the book, then you look at the first radiant habit of physical wellness. Right. You practice it, you use the questionnaire, see where you are as far as your present level of health is concerned, and then take steps to improve the level of wellness. So I like to think of it as a workbook, which a person picks up, uses, improves the level of happiness in his company, and passes it on to friends. So I think of it as a book that is a mighty virus which has spread the epidemic of happiness across the corporate world. It might work because it's simple, because it goes to the very core of being Indian and growing up here.
Quoting again from your book, The Happiness Quotient. If you are tired, rest. If you are hungry, eat. Life can be so simple. When do you think we lost this connect between the body and the mind?
It's because we have allowed ourselves to dull our natural responses by being too busy. When you're too busy, you don't understand really what you need. Like later in the book, you'll find the use of HALT, which is used by Alcoholics Anonymous. That is, don't get too hungry, don't get too angry, lonely or too tired. So, I think these responses, if you start ignoring, then you lose your feeling of radiant wellness. And most of the time we allow ourselves to be dulled to these natural clues that the body gives us, that it is not at rest. And we lose touch. The body loses touch with how it's feeling.
In one of your statements you say, eliminate deadlines and mad emergency. Now how is that possible? That tick-tock of time governs our life from, say, the womb to the tomb. 9 months, 9 days in the womb. And everything else from then on is governed by time. How can we eliminate this from our life? How can we manage time?
People through the centuries have had the same problem. It's just that we have allowed ourselves to be hypnotized by the idea that we are immortal and we can rush around madly and live forever. If you rush around madly, you're not going to live very long. And I think we've lost touch with what makes us feel good. Because across the centuries, people have done great things. They've achieved wonderful, they have had wonderful achievements, and great things have happened in the past. We are not the first generation to do great things.
Yeah.
So why should we imagine that only this generation should live at this breakneck speed? I think it's a decision which we have taken without thinking carefully about the long-term implications.
Right. This has been addressed in your book.
Yes. When I do my work on innovation, I get into companies for long periods, like a year. We have an innovation initiative. And during this period, I get to know people across the company, because we teach the thinking tools to everyone, from doorman to chairman. It becomes a common language of being with each other. And you meet people from different levels. And what struck me the most during my last 20 years of working in very, very profitable companies was that the real casualty was the daily joy of living, the joy of craftsmanship, the joy of being with families. I used to meet young, brilliant MBAs who would say, I can do this for 2-3 years, not more. After that, I'm planning to do something else. And lots of people would, it's really true, that restaurant, thank God it's Friday. It's really true. People feel like that. On Monday, they're waiting for Friday. And so when we start our innovation initiative, the first thing we do is we install the positive field. The positive field is made up of positive emotions like love, compassion, laughter, and we set up committees to develop these emotions. So the base for all our 47 thinking tools which we use in innovation, the base is installing the positive field. So I started thinking about how you can do all these things, but how can you still retain your core level of happiness? And about 7 years ago, I wrote this book, like a management book. When I showed it to my editor, he said, it's very interesting but very difficult to read. And why should a book on happiness be so difficult to read? Because it was very heavy. So that's when I started writing it as a story.
A book like The Happiness Quotient just doesn't come out of the air. I'm sure there is some personal experiences also that has inspired you to, think of some of these concepts. Is there a lot of personal, life experience that has gone into this book?
Some of it has come from my own life experience. Some of it has come from other people's lives. But the starting point is from my own life experience. Because I did meet this person who said, you can't control the whole world. You can't control the events of your life. But you can control the way you breathe. So start by breathing correctly. And if you breathe correctly, everything else falls into place. It was a very inspiring thought that you had control over your own happiness. Because usually you think of happiness as something that happens, like a cloud that floats in, or somebody else makes you happy. For the first time I realized that he was saying that take control of your own happiness. Because it is yours to control. Like whatever else is happening in your life, you can always have a cup of coffee with a friend. You can always read a great book. You can listen to fantastic music. Nobody's stopping you even if the worst things are happening around you. So I like the thought of a proactive approach to happiness. And then of course, it's made up of incidents from many other people's lives and so on. But mainly it is about how one person who is completely burnt out starts thinking about things which you don't have time to think about because you're rushing at such breakneck speed.
Can you share with us some, incidents where somebody has really made a turnover or has had a radical change in his or her life after your course or during the period of training under you? Can you think of...
the way we measure the success of the innovation initiative is because it's company-wide. We usually measure the impact on productivity, on increasing revenues, reducing costs. Like at the Durgapur steel plant right now, there are 75 innovation initiative projects going on, and they've calculated that the total value of those projects is about 250 crores. So, we don't really measure the soft elements like are people happier. But because you install the positive field before you start the innovation initiative, you get people to think about what makes their teams happy. You get take steps to reduce conflict and so on. I believe that at the end of innovation initiative, the whole company is in a much happier frame. Happiness quotient has a questionnaire under each of the 7 radiant habits. We have not really implemented those because this is a new idea that I've had. So we have not implemented that in my innovation initiatives. But recently, a very old client of mine, they've been my clients for 23 years, they have said, why don't you introduce the happiness quotient measurement into your innovation initiative? So I may be starting that for my next program.
In your pursuit of academics and writing 5 books which require so much of research, over and above that, I remember that you have also done your 1% towards society with your interaction with the Rotary Club. Can you tell us about that?
This was a great opportunity I got when I became one of the first women governors in Rotary for the District 3230. And one of the most inspiring projects which I was involved with was water resources. Improving pure, clean drinking water for people. I first became involved because I read that 6,000 children die every day because of polluted drinking water. 6,000 children die every day. Just imagine if the 6,000 children died because of 3 Boeings crashing. All the world leaders would be, talking about how to solve this. But these children die silently without anybody knowing. And I was lucky enough to get elected to the global body of Rotary called WASRAC. I was elected as a director of that. And I was able to promote the idea of using water responsibly. I developed a 52-week plan to save water on an individual level. Things like when you wash your car, use that water to water the plants. Don't just allow it to go down the drain. Or when you brush your teeth, don't leave the tap on. Small things like that. And I found that people were very interested to learn about how to use resources better. And a beautiful project that I was lucky enough to be involved with was cleaning up 2,000-year-old temple tanks. Like the Vallakota Murugan tank. We just spent 50,000 rupees with one of the Rotary clubs. Got involved with the civic society living around the tank. And it's just so wonderful to look at that cesspool changed into a beautiful limpid tank with lotuses growing. Like it also involved educating people not to throw shampoo sachets into the temple tank, and that was a very inspiring project, and lots of temple tanks got cleaned up after that time. And I'm very impressed by the work that Sirthuli in Coimbatore is doing to save the river Noyal. They're saving a whole river by the kind of, by involving people living on the banks of the river. So I love the work I've done on, with water. In fact, I might write a book about water.
Oh, wonderful.
Because it's the one resource which is drying out, and it's a very source of life.
Rita, is happiness such a big thing? Why should happiness be such a big thing? Why should we all be happy? You must have an answer for that.
It's important for people to be happy because happy people are more productive. They have greater chances of achieving higher levels of excellence. And beautiful things happen when people are happy. It was the king of Bhutan who came up with the idea of measuring the gross national happiness of a country. And thereafter, Thailand has adopted it, and every quarter you can read the figures for the gross national happiness.
How is it measured?
It's measured on 6 different parameters, including political wellness and then environmental. It's very well put together.
So it is a survey which is being done.
Okay. And recently, both the English Premier and the Australian Premier have asked that surveys be conducted to find out what makes the people in their country happy. See, what makes a person in Bhutan happy may not be what makes a person in England happy.
Right.
See, but this whole movement of happiness, I feel, is something where people have recognized that great economic progress cannot be measured unless it is also supported by deep levels of happiness. The happiness quotient model which I have developed is for individuals, because all happiness starts at the individual level. So if everyone becomes conscious of their own happiness, the country will become a happier place. Like if all CEOs were to keep in mind that a very important part of their balance sheet is the happiness of their employees, you'd have a different India.
Right.
This whole use and throw away mentality, the Kleenex mentality of corporations is something that the happiness quotient will combat. Sometimes when I'm driving through the highways, I see these chicken farms. All the chickens are just herded together and they're not able to move because they don't want them to move and lose fat. They're fed steroids and they can just peck their food and it's such a restricted life. And then I remember all the chickens in my grandmother's house all flying around and
they're so happy.
Yeah, and they like pecking the dust and having adventures and having a really good time. Sometimes I see our kids in those little cubicles and those huge chicken coops that we're putting them into.
Right. Yeah.
And I think there must be a better way. Like, why should that sleek young athlete become a fat, depressed CEO?
Right.
This is an inevitable progression if he's going to, work the way we're working now. If he's not conscious, like ICICI Bank has its gym in the basement, and everybody from the CEO downwards goes to that gym. So if you're seen in the gym, you get brownie points.
Right.
So that's a good thing, when the leaders show that physical health and fitness is very important, and we pay attention to it ourselves. So then others want to do
But
it.
I think it all boils down to consumerism, material wealth, which is what is sort of a kind of a measurement you have among peers. How much money do I have?
Sadhu Mama says, in one of the conversations they're having, he says, what sets apart the men from the boys is the price of their toys.
Right.
Because after all, what are these things? They're really only toys. They're not going to give you deep down, long-term, consistent, sustained happiness.
Right.
And many of these questions are discussed. Like, are you going to keep working, both people keep working together to buy that new house, or are you going to have a baby?
Right.
Or are you going to wait till it's too late?
Yes.
Are you going to take care of your parents? Or are you going to rush off to the latest locale the company thinks you're needed in? So, a lot of these dilemmas. But what I want to get across here is personal happiness is the basis for corporate happiness. Corporate happiness can form the bedrock of national happiness. And I think the happiness of companies is as important as the GDP of companies.
Right. I also like what you have done with concepts, 2,000-year-old concept like Navarasas from the Natya Shastra. And the way you have incorporated in your book, I think it is amazing. Do you think the global world, the corporate world can understand such concepts?
I think the whole world is waiting to understand the Indian way of life, because our way of life is simple, it's green, it's environmentally friendly. We are not harsh with the earth. We are the only people who bow before a man in a loincloth just because he knows something, I think the whole world is waiting for this worldview. And the time has come for us to simplify what we know from our cradles.
Yeah.
See, even though we know about the Navarasas, we don't talk about it to our kids.
Right. Yeah.
You know, we all know about it. We all grew up with it. I mean, you being a dancer should know that. And you know, the Ashtalakshmi, we all know that happiness is not only Dhanalakshmi. Dhanalakshmi, the goddess of wealth. Along with the goddess of wealth, you need so many other things. Like you need children, you need education, you need all the 8 forms of wealth if you really are to be truly endowed with wellness and well-being, because Lakshmi is not only for money. She is, you know, the very concept of wealth is Lakshmi. Lakshmi, who is not only you know, presiding over wealth in terms of money, but presiding over all forms of wealth. So Sadhumama asks, what is the use of having a lot of money and a child who's a drug addict?
Right.
You know, there are so many things that make up the wholeness and the happiness of a person, and it's not only money. Everybody knows that. But then I think the Ashtalakshmi, in the Ashtalakshmi concept, they've clearly identified what are the different streams that add up to health. I've not seen any other analysis anywhere else for the understanding of happiness.
Right. So what makes Dr. Rekha Shetty happy?
I think this interview makes me happy because I get to talk about my ideas to so many people. It makes me happy to bring, you know, very complicated concept within the ambit of a book. It makes me happy when I create a thinking tool. You know, I like things which can be replicated. I think there's no use having ideas which can be thought of or used only by people in the ivory tower of boardrooms. I think whatever I think of in management should be used by everybody from doorman to chairman. Makes me happy when I see thousands of people talking the language of innovation, because it is a different language. Like the way you treat each other is different. It's full of caring. It builds on your ideas rather than, it's collaborative rather than conflicting. So actually it's very easy to make me happy. If people don't trouble me, I'm happy. You know, usually. Like any stupid thing makes me happy, like just walking in the garden. That's why I like this idea of happiness breaks. You know, like whatever is happening in your life, you can walk in the garden, you can listen to music, you can probably, you know, just sit and watch the clouds. There's so many things you can do, whatever is happening in your life. You can take the decision to do life affirming things which actually leads to happiness, or life destroying attitude. Like you can, anything bad that happens to you, you can just curl up and keep cribbing and things just get worse. Don't give yourself any happiness breaks. Don't even have a cup of coffee. Don't have an oil bath. Neglect yourself. The recipe for unhappiness. Whereas do the opposite. You know, get into your best clothes and call one of your friends, have coffee with your very dear friend, maybe read a great book, and just pull yourself out of that slough of despond, like they say, you know. So I like this idea of proactively creating your own happiness. And I feel very happy when I think that someone like you likes the book.
Thank you, Rekha, for making these simple, you know, practical tips, for giving simple practical tips which even a normal lay person can use. Not only for the corporate world, but it is for any normal lay person to use these magic keys to open up our minds, to open up our hearts and live a life full of joy and happiness. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you.
Next week, a new guest. Till we meet again, it's goodbye for now.